Hello, and welcome to another installment of HDBaseT Extended, where we sit down with our industry's thought leaders for conversations on all things Pro AV. I'm your host, Daniel Shwartzberg, and today I am super happy to be joined by Jason Fitzgerald, Product Manager US Market at HDBaseT Alliance member Blustream, to discuss the latest from the world of residential AV installation. Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
No, thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
It's great to see you again.
Yeah.
So let's get started. Okay. So when you think, or at least when I think, and many people think residential AV, usually the first thing that comes to mind, I'm afraid to say, are things like lighting and
Mhm.
automated blinds and not necessarily Pro AV. So let me start by asking you, what role is Blustream playing in this smart home evolution? And, in particular, with your new HMX 88 18G, which is an 8x8 HDBaseT 3.0 matrix switcher, which we heard was a huge hit at CEDIA. So tell us about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, Bluestream being, squarely in signal management, we saturate, both residential, commercial markets, but specifically in residential, and especially when it comes to like CEDIA, we always think you're right, lights, shade, thermostats, and part of that ecosystem really for that kind of complete smart or smart home really, because that's really what it is these days. It includes AV, right? So either whether it be like music broadcast or distribution throughout a house, that's very common, but also control of TV, whether it's a dedicated media like a projector room, or a media room, and then of course how signals are then distributed throughout a home, right? Watching content, or consuming media throughout the home, and that's really where Bluestream comes in, and the plethora, one of my favorite words, of products that Bluestream has that helps facilitate that, right? So, and that's really where we come in.
That's
Um,
fantastic. So you're going to say, go ahead.
Oh no, the so at CEDIA this year. So we did feature a brand new product, the HMX 88 18G. So, if we take that name, we kind of break it down. It's an 8x8 matrix, but it features full HDMI 2.0 extension using, your technology's latest 3.0 iteration. Right. And so we've been in this space already for a while. We've had a couple of products already now for really over a year that have given us, using VS3K, HDBaseT 3.0 over extension. And so we've taken that to the next level by adding that into really an 8x8 matrix. So we do feel, especially in the residential market, the 8x8 and even 4x4, that kind of sweet spot for, sources and displays is really where this product is going to shine. So it's got 8 inputs, 8 outputs, whereas all 8 outputs actually feature HDBaseT 3.0 for extension. In addition to that, there's a couple of local outputs as well. So you have the ability, they're mirrored outputs for the first 2 outputs. We took a step a while ago by adding audio integration or matrixing capabilities into some of our matrix lines. And this product also then, joins that pedigree and has basically a 26x8 matrix, audio matrix baked in, where we can take audio from, the inputs, the outputs, or even from, the remote extended side, using ARC, right? Bringing audio back in. And that's very important these days. And then, having all the, what I would call, standard advanced EDID management, the ability to do something we call guest mode, which, when we talk about integrating things like control. So, because we want to control that entire smart home, right? Being able to, send commands directly over an IP interface to control devices either through serial or ILR. So stuff like that, really what we feel sets this product apart, including, like I said, that ability to take, HDMI to the furthest distances in really what I would say is the bread and butter for, where HDMI is today, right? At 18 gigs, at 2.0.
Absolutely. So, of course, with HDBaseT Spec 3, you get all of that 18 gigs without any compression whatsoever, as you say, bringing your customers the very best video quality. Now, you threw a lot of information into that introduction, so I'm going to break it down a little bit. And, clearly we've talked a lot about the video, and video is essential when it comes to residential entertainment. but we cannot forget the A in Pro AV, in other words, the audio. And of course, you guys, no stranger to audio, being, you touched upon it just now, amongst the first to fully integrate ARC via HDMI, and then across the HDBaseT signal. So let's dive a little deeper into that, right? Let's tell us a little more about ARC and even eARC, right? That makes them so important to those residential installations.
Yeah, absolutely. So ARC, stands for audio return channel. So that's a feature in HDMI. Having the ability, so where we think HDMI is like, we think of it in a forward or one direction. Well, really the intricacies, there's a lot of two-way communication, but basically, you think going from a source to a display. And ARC gives us the capability to bring a signal back, in this case, audio. And its main purpose really is for, usage with devices, specifically like TVs or smart TVs, to send audio from the TV back. Now, why would we want to do that? Well, as you know, how we consume most of our media these days is through streaming, right? So that is probably, the biggest advent probably in the last decade or so to change to how we consume media has been the integration of the internet, cloud services for us to consume that media. So I would really say in the last 5 years or so, we've seen smart TVs really garner parity, I would say, with some of the biggest devices out there now. So while at the beginning, we had smart TVs with some basic, streaming services or streaming apps available, where they were kind of eclipsed by standalone devices. But now we're really seeing the capabilities in these smart TVs, becoming at a much higher level where they could definitely, I'd say, compete with some of these devices. So now, before where you could have a separate box, like, I'm going to throw out a name there, like an Apple TV or an NVIDIA Shield, as part of an ecosystem, which you can still certainly do. You're going to break out that audio probably where that source is at a rack to the system. But now that we're integrating TVs, it's certainly much more convenient to use that service directly on the TV because you've got a player basically baked in. But how do we get that audio back, to a rack where it can be amplified into speakers? And that's where that ARC comes in. So, you've got ARC, which is the initial, introduction of that technology, which gives us, your basic DTS, Dolby capabilities, 5.1 multi-channel or stereo audio. And then ARC, or eARC, I should say, the enhanced version of ARC, brings that to the newer formats you probably have heard about, right? So that's Dolby Atmos is probably the main one. And so with the HMX, the 18G, we can bring back ARC. So that's either, over the direct HDMI connection from a TV, so utilizing that ARC capability, or through an optical, because we know on some certain devices, you only have the availability to export or get audio out of TV from like an optical port. So we have the option on both. In terms of eARC, which, equally important, like I said, we've been doing, using HDBaseT 3.0 for, a while now. And we do have a product, the HMX 18G, the ARC kit, that actually has that eARC capability there as well.
Nice. So like I say, you guys really, put your heart and soul into making sure that the audio is just as good as the video. Now again, you mentioned, of course, smart TVs, and clearly, you need a high bandwidth internet connection for that. But beyond that need for good bandwidth for the internet, I'm sure it's really important when it comes to things like simplifying the overall system management, shall we say. So again, if we look at the HMX 18G that has the HDBaseT inside, how does that help? How does that help the integrators, the installers, when it comes to the management?
Yeah, no, so that's perfect, because the one thing I'm realizing now I left out in talking when I was going through that little bit of discussion is the fact that we've integrated, and that's part of the HDBaseT 3.0 is upping the bandwidth capability on what we would call that last portion of the 5-play story, right, of adding Ethernet connectivity. And so we've utilized that on this product to basically provide LAN serving. And the importance of that really is now the ability to hardwire up our devices, as opposed to having to rely wireless. And so when we talk about building a true system, a bulletproof system, having hardwired, and this is a hot topic, but you got convenience of wireless, but really the bulletproof, for the most part, capability of a wired connection, you get that now with this product, right? So we can do LAN serving, so that kind of 5-play, experience using the HMX 18G kit. And so being able to pull in LAN, serve it up to TVs, and that gives us twofold, right? So we can provide then the internet services for, streaming content, but additionally, we know from a control standpoint, let's kind of face it, everything now living kind of on the internet through either cloud or localized on-site on-premise kind of, services, being able to control a display using IP is certainly now the more efficient way, and I think the most preferred way now, if possible, because as you said, it reduces the number of cables you have to run. So IR or serial having separate lines for that, an IR bug that might be, maybe unsightly, right, to kind of see that on there, but having that all integrated then on one package and then providing everything on a single cable, right? That's the big benefit, right? And that's always been the promise of HDBaseT, and that's really what we wanted to utilize.
Perfect. And as you say, everything one cable makes it so much simpler to install. In particular, that's we're talking about residential. The fewer the cables, the better. Now, let's talk a little bit more before we wrap this up about control, right? Because of course, it is a huge factor in these residential systems, as you just mentioned, and interoperability between members in the HDBaseT ecosystem that's our hallmark, right? And of course, Blustream is compatible with all the control brands. And correct me if I'm mistaken, but I think you even have drivers that are written specifically for most of the products across the board, right? But there is one platform in particular that I'd like to touch on, and that comes from fellow HDBaseT Alliance member RTI Control, and that's their Designer 11, right? Which again, you were showcasing that at CEDIA. So tell us a little more about that integration and what makes Designer 11 really, really so special.
Yeah. So in the US, Blustream has partnered with RTI, and as you said, and I like to kind of say this line is that it works very well with RTI, but plays nicely with others. And right. So the Blustream brand has always been, agnostic in terms of the control capability, right? We want to make it widely available to anyone using any control system. But, partnering with RTI in the US has given us a unique opportunity really to kind of integrate natively into that platform drivers and capabilities of the Blustream products into that. And largely that's going to happen through, and how you design it, through integration Designer 11. And what we were showcasing at CEDIA really is that, the capability of how both of these play together, right? How Blustream and RTA play nicely together. And Integration Designer is a perfect platform for that. It was designed really, and that's RTI's banner, is the fact that it's a fully customizable platform, right? You can build for anything, which can seem daunting at first, I think, to a lot of people, like it's fully customizable, but then there are templates available to make, a quick setup, certainly possible to have a Coral template for that. But with Integration Designer 11, they included things like a system manager that tracks activities throughout the system. So when you're building out a control system, or a program for a residential home, for example, they can track devices like sources, their states. So when, for example, you are switching a source at in a media room, for example, if they're no longer using that source, so if we're using a Blustream matrix, for example, and we know that there are no other rooms using that source, we'll turn it off. Right. So those kind of automated functionality using, the system manager in there kind of helps ease on the programming side, because there's automatic programming capabilities. In addition to the fact that, tracking activities, it helps speed things up. Right. Because if we turn things off, manage some of that stuff in the background, it makes for a better user experience. And that's really the promise of Integration Designer 11, that next iteration of the RTI, software platform that drives that entire whole home experience.
Yeah, I mean, it really is super neat. And again, you said it, that is one of a platform you do play nicely with all of them.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, we're not trying to pigeonhole you there, but it is a really really nice platform.
Yeah.
Okay, Jason. So, we could talk for hours, I'm sure, but we need to wrap up. And of course, we really have only just begun to scratch the surface here. So for those folks watching and those who want to learn more about Blustream and your latest offering, what can they do? Where should they go to?
Yeah, so certainly there's a lot of resources online. You can follow us on Instagram, on Twitter. Well, I guess it's called X now. So, as well as, basic for any information, you can reach out to us, at the Blustream website. So that's www.blustream-us.com. So Blustream-us.com.
Perfect. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot of people who have seen this short interview with you going there. So again, Jason, I really do want to thank you once more for taking the time to join us today. And of course, for sharing your thoughts and insights on Pro AV in residential AV, and for telling us a little bit more And you could have told us a ton more. I realize that, but just a little bit more about how Blustream are helping those integrators and installers in that space. So really, many, many thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you so much.
Great pleasure. So until next time, everybody, I'm Daniel Shwartzberg from the HDBaseT Alliance. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for more HDBaseT extended interviews coming your way very, very soon. Until then, bye-bye.